Thanks, Jane. Well, as Jane mentioned, I'm here to talk about my research into office cake culture. It's the first academic study into office cake culture. I've come from a corporate background, so it made sense when I did my master's in obesity and weight management to do some research. I had to do a research project, but it made sense to do it on something that relates to the corporate environment, so hence the cake. And what I'm hoping to do in the next 30 minutes or so, I think the idea is that I can talk, I'll be a bit interactive, but then we'll have a Q&A at the end, if that's okay with you. But I hope that in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to be able to explain quite why I think it's so important that we think about cake and talk about cake in our current environment. We're facing one of the biggest challenges of the age at the moment, aren't we? You know, health, or rather ill health. We're in a bad way. And what I'm hoping I can persuade you about is that office cake plays a part in that. And the second thing I'm hoping I can do is help you to realise that you have a part to play. You as individuals have a part to play, Simply Health, your families and so on. But there is something we can do because it's a really complex topic, obesity or health. And it's so complex, everybody comes up with different ideas and argues about what the causes are and what we need to do about it. It's very easy for us just to think, I don't know what to do and do nothing. And that's the worst thing. We have got to do something. We really have. So that's what I'm hoping today. With office cake, what I'm meaning is cake that people bring, or cake sweet treats, you know, confectionery, pastries that people bring into the workplace to share. Okay, it might come from management, it might come from colleagues, it might come from, you know, leftovers from meetings, and so on. So that's what we mean when we're talking about cake. Okay, and so my husband, I'm going to start with a story. My husband is a consultant. One of his clients is a really successful, innovative SME, about 3,000 employees, top of its game, wins awards, very high employee engagement, retention, satisfaction. It seems a genuinely delightful place to work. They do have a cake culture. Now, he first told me about this 3 years ago, before I had any notions about doing degrees in cake. So this is a long time ago. There is a cake culture, and he mentioned it to them one day. And they said, oh yes, because it seemed, you know, it's a great place to work, and something about the cake culture seemed to be tied up in what made it a great place to work. And they said, oh yes, everybody puts on weight when they work here. We call it the company's stone. Now, you know, we're all having a little smile there, but it's really not very funny, is it? And this is the nub of the dilemma. Is office cake a really sociable way to get together, build relationships, have a break from work? Or is it a health risk? And what do we do about that? Because it's one of the big questions of our time. So, I mean, do you relate to that? That is a sort of a disconnect, isn't it? It's quite a tough thing. And it doesn't help when we've got beautiful ads. Have you seen these McVitie's ads? They're both from the workplace. The other one is a chap who's driving a crane and he's sad because he can't have tea breaks with his colleagues because he's 100 foot up in the air. But they send him up a pot of tea and a packet of digestives, and everybody's happy. And what the brand director of McVitie's says is that McVitie's at the moment are all about enabling everyday moments of human connection. And I think we relate to that. They're very clever. They've tapped into something that we can all recognise. But I'm sorry, if we can't connect on a human level without a packet of Jaffa cakes, we are in trouble. But we are in trouble. We really are. So that's not a particularly helpful message in a country where 2/3 of us are overweight or obese, and that is increasing. It's not helpful. So let's just pull back a little bit and have a look at the context and why I am making such a fuss about something as trivial as office cake. So a bit of a brutal question here for a Wednesday lunchtime, but what do we all die of these days? It's not old age. It's not, sorry? Heart attacks, diabetes.
Some form of cancer?
Some cancers, absolutely. So what you've got here on the left-hand side is a list of the top 5 non-communicable diseases, NCDs. You'll recognise all of them. 90% of us die of them in Europe. So an NCD, a non-communicable disease, something that is not transmitted by some sort of infectious bug or virus or war. So these are things that happen due to our lifestyle. And the tragic thing is that, although this is what most of us die of, they are preventable. They're largely preventable. So the slide on the right tells you that about 80% of the people, of us, who die from those NCDs, and there are many more, we don't have to die from them. If our lifestyle choices were different, we wouldn't die from those things. Slightly different figures with cancer. But the biggest cause of cancer that's a non-communicable thing is smoking. But the second biggest cause of cancer is obesity. Obesity is linked to 13 different cancers. I mean, did you know that? You're in a health corporation, but obesity, and the links are strong enough to say that for 13 cancers, obesity causes the cancer. That's quite a big thing to say. And there are plenty of other cancers where it plays a role, but there isn't the science yet to say that there's a causal link. So in fact, obesity is a risk factor for all of those and all the other NCDs, liver disease, kidney disease, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, they all have very, very strong links to obesity. So if we could tackle obesity, just easy, we could tackle these NCDs. And our lives, our quality of life would be a lot nicer for longer, because we are tending to live a little bit longer, not much, but our quality of life is not good. Because our medicine is so fantastic, we're not good. And at the moment, over half of our 65 pluses are living with 2 chronic diseases. But that figure is, in 2035, is projected to be 3/4 of us are going to be living with 2 or more chronic diseases. And they think that something like 20% are going to have 4 chronic diseases. So that's not a great way to live, especially as we're getting them younger, and our younger people are getting iller with these things sooner, so they're bearing the weight, the burden of these terrible diseases for much longer. Birmingham is a hotspot for type 2 diabetes, and children are being diagnosed at the age of 13, which means that they are ill with high blood sugar for several years before that. So, I mean, so these poor kids, no wonder that they are the first generation that are going to have a shorter lifespan than their parents. That hasn't happened since time immemorial, because medicine and food and nutrition has improved. But it's going the other way now because of NCD. So it's quite important. I'm just trying to set a little bit of context there. So how do we tackle obesity? Well, surely that's easy. You just eat less and you move more. If only we're that easy. Clearly it's not that easy because it's not working. We've had those messages for a long time. 12 years ago, some of the best brains in the country sat down to try and work out what the causes were, to try and make sense of what was going on. So we had, in the room, we had architects, doctors, scientists, educators, media people from all over society. And this is what they came up with. Now, I know you can't see the detail of this, but you can see the complexity. It's commonly known as the spaghetti diagram. And what it is describing is an obesogenic environment. Is that a term that you've come across? Obesogenic. Obesogenic, a landscape that generates obesity. It's not easy today to stay healthy. You walk down the high street, every other shop is a food outlet offering you food that probably isn't very good for you, and you didn't even know you wanted, you certainly don't need it, but you didn't know you wanted it until you walked past and there was a poster, or if you walk past a supermarket, there's a waft of lovely baking smells wafting out to try and entice you. So everywhere there's have a healthy snack, have a snack to keep you going. If you walk into an awful lot of office buildings, first of all, you've got the reception desk and then you've got the lifts. If you want to use the stairs, you've got to ferret around the back somewhere. So that's why the architects and town planners were in the room. It's very easy to go to walk home from work if there's no public transport. It's very difficult to go for a run in the evening if there's no street lights. So it's a societal issue. A group of scientists that first started to describe the obesogenic environment were this lot, and they say that obesity is the natural result of people living in an obesogenic environment. So what they're saying is that we can't help it, really. So to use a software analogy, as humans we've evolved with software that's now hundreds of thousands of years old, and we haven't had the upgrade that would help us deal with life today. So when we were living in caves, we had a sweet tooth. We knew that if we could seep out honey, climb a tree, risk being stung to death, it was worth it, because honey and sweetness represented energy, maybe a little layer of fat to keep us going through the winter. The same thing with food. Of course, we know we had to go and track down an antelope for days, didn't we? So there's a team off tracking antelope or a woolly mammoth. There's another, the villagers are left at home, perhaps digging up the odd root to keep them going till you come back. You kill your antelope, you're dragging it back to the village, saber-toothed tiger comes along and nicks your antelope. So you have to start again. So in those days, we didn't know where the next food was coming from. So when you did have a belly full of antelope, with spare antelope for tomorrow and the next day, your body naturally told itself to rest and digest, to conserve energy, to have a bit of a nap, because it needed to conserve energy because it knew it was off antelope hunting in the next few days. Now, we've still got those urges, so we're still responding and hunting out the sugar, and we're still wanting a little nap after we've eaten a lot. And that doesn't help in this society when there is food everywhere. So that's kind of what we're up against. I've got a couple of slides, I'm only going to do one of them. This is a paper written by Nigel Crisp. Where have I put it? Nigel Crisp used to be CEO of the NHS, and he's now in the House of Lords heading up a task force where they're trying to rethink ways of tackling the NCD obesity problem. And he's talking about a health-creating society. So not being on the back foot, responding to a society where we're all getting very, very ill and the NHS is struggling. They came up with 4 recommendations. This was December 2016. The UK needs to develop and implement a plan for building a health-creating society supported by all sectors of the economy and the wider population. It goes on in more detail on the inside. It is clear that developing and supporting a healthy population cannot be done by the NHS, health professionals and politicians alone. Achieving real impact of the health of people throughout society requires leadership and action from all sectors. I think the workplace is one of those sectors. I think leadership in the workplace is one of those kinds of leadership that can do something. We can put something in to try and make a difference to this society. So the workplace has a huge role to play. Okay, there's another one there. Right. This, the way that our brains aren't very good at dealing, our genes aren't very good at dealing with society today. A couple of examples you might recognise. First of all, our brains work against us. So in my brain, and this is a terrible room to work in because there's pictures of cake. I was hoping that really my Belgian bun picture might be safely behind me, because when I see a picture of a Belgian bun, when I think about a Belgian bun, the pleasure centres in my brain are kicking off. They're reminding me how fabulous it tasted and felt the last time I had one, that glacé cherry in the icing. Meanwhile, my reward centres are urging me to go and seek that pleasure again. Go and get that little dopamine hit. Just like seeing a message on your phone or something, it's the same hit. So at the same time, my mouth's watering, and my mouth is watering, and my stomach juices are flowing, ready to receive the Belgian bun that my brain is pretty certain it's about to get. So my only weapon against this is willpower. But the bad news is that willpower doesn't last very long. It does run out. So if you're in an office where there's some lovely cakes laid around all day, it's my birthday, I've brought some cakes, there, I'm thinking, help yourself. If I've been superhumanly brilliant and I've resisted them all day long, I shouldn't beat myself up, and neither should you, if come 4 o'clock, your willpower deserts you and you succumb to a muffin. It's not you being lazy, it's not you being greedy, it's not you being weak. It is your learned hedonic responses kicking in, and they are very, very hard to resist. They really are little devils. And this is what the food manufacturers and advertisers are latching onto. Our learned hedonic responses. For you, it might not be Belgian buns. I mean, it's probably all the nice stuff that we've ever eaten, because our brains remember this. They're very clever. It might be for you, it might not be a Belgian bun, it might be a Big Mac or a bag of crisps. I don't know. But it's very, very tough to resist these things. Yeah, I think that's everything I need. It is very, very hard to resist. Okay, right, so let's take the Belgian bun in a workplace situation. 400 odd calories. If I am typically in the work, if I'm like if I work somewhere that is typical from the research I did, we'll have cake at least twice a week, every week. So if I have cake, Belgian bun twice a week for 47 weeks of the year to account for holidays, I'm having an extra 40,000 calories, nearest damn it. If I am a typical person, now that's, it doesn't matter where you stand on calories, whether you think they're a good thing or a bad thing. I personally don't think they're very useful these days, but that's another whole topic. That is not good. And if I am a typical person, according to the research, which interviewed 1,000 UK office workers, so quite a big sample, I won't compensate for that Belgian bun. I won't go for a run at lunchtime to run it off for an hour. I won't miss lunch or something because I've already had my bun. I won't compensate. So those are extra calories. So that's not really ideal, is it? Now, the thing is, you might feel pretty patronised by me saying, oh, you mustn't eat it because it's bad for you. You know this. We all know this. And that's why education campaigns, awareness-raising campaigns don't work. They don't work by themselves. They might need something else to go on. Now, I know Simply Health did a survey to tie in with the launch of the sugar tax, and in the survey, I don't know who the sample was, but what the survey said was 3/4 of people thought sugar tax was a bad idea, and we should stick with education and awareness-raising campaigns. But they don't work. They make us very aware and very knowledgeable, but they do not change our behaviour. And that's why, even though we know we should limit our alcohol intake to 14 units or less a week, we should take how many minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity every week? 150 minutes, yeah. You see, we don't even really know. Nobody knows that. Doctors don't know that. But education, it doesn't work. It doesn't change our behaviour. What tends to change our behaviour or influence our behaviour is what the behaviour of what it is that other people around us are doing. So if my colleagues say no to the Belgian bun, I'm more likely to say no to the Belgian bun. But if my colleagues say yes, I'm much more likely to say, oh, go on then. So we are very bound by the influences of other people. And this is where social norms come in. Different teams, different groups, different cultures, and different companies have different sets of social norms that add together to build up a company culture. And when we go somewhere new, we're subliminally, we don't realise, subconsciously looking for cues in the environment that tell us what is appropriate behaviour in that setup. And that's how we tend to work. So you can see where we're going with this. In the workplace, if our colleagues are eating the cake, we're more likely to eat the cake. So behaviour change programs that are saying, well, let's help you build up your willpower, let's help you have the skills to resist the cake, they aren't very effective. What might be more effective is making the environment less obesogenic. That would mean that it's much easier for you to make the healthy choice. And this is what nudge theory is all about. It's about making the easy choice, the healthy choice, for most of the people most of the time. It's not about reducing choice. So I know we were talking before we came in here about vending machines. And at one point, I don't know when, but vending machines were not replaced, but they were filled with healthy things, and the chocolate went. And there was an uproar. What this is saying is, don't take away the vending machines, but maybe put them in the basement or something. So if anybody really wants a Twix, it's there for them. But it's not there in front of everybody, so that anybody who's feeling a bit hungry, or maybe isn't feeling hungry, walks past the vending machine and thinks, I better have a Twix. It's about making the environment a little bit healthier, and so it's easier for us to make healthy choices. That is a really useful way forward that's been looked at the moment. So in terms of workplace health, it's fantastic to do all the things that probably, what happens here? What are the workplace health initiatives that happen at Simply Health? Fruit Day? That's good. I bet you've got healthy options in your canteen.
We don't have a canteen.
You don't have a canteen? Oh, right, okay.
We have chocolate in the vending machine.
You do have chocolate in the vending machine.
We do things like Millions Moving and encourage people as best we can to be active.
Exactly. So there's good stuff going on, but there are loads of organisations that enter competitions like Britain's Healthiest Workplace, sponsored by Vitality, which I'm sure you all know about. And they tick all the boxes. Yes, we've got wellbeing champions, we've got weight loss champions, we've got signs at the bottom of the stairs saying, take the stairs, don't take the lifts. They might make the lift doors slower to shut, so it's not worth getting the lifts. It's a little nudge thing, I might as well go and get the stairs, it's quicker. Little things like that. You're not removing the choice, you're just making the healthy choice the easier choice. But what is the point in investing in health? Because you know that you're going to get more production from healthy, happy employees. What is the point of spending good money after that, which is the morally right thing to do, and it's going to help your bottom line as well? What is the point in investing in all of that if you've still got the sugar coming in, which is a health risk? How does that weigh up? So it makes sense to make the most of the money you're investing in the healthy stuff by making it harder to get hold of the unhealthy stuff. That's the sort of premise, really. So we have to bin the bad stuff. Okay, so the research, 1,000 UK office workers. How are we doing for time? 1,000 UK office workers. We know that we've already said that office cake is available at least twice a week for the vast majority. For nearly a quarter, it was at least 3 or 4 times a week. That second chunk of data there is basically, if you add it all together, it's saying if cake is there, people will eat it. The one second to the bottom, about 28% of people find it difficult to resist office cake, even if they're not hungry, if they've just had a meal. That is our learned hedonic responses kicking in. And any weight loss program, any diet that says, have lots of protein, it'll keep you fuller for longer. Well, yeah, maybe it will, but when you're faced with a Belgian bun, appetite's got bugger all to do with it. And I'm sorry, I've put that on camera, haven't I? That swear word. So, the other thing is that people were saying that it made it harder to eat healthily at work, and nearly a third said that office cake they thought had made them put on weight. Now, we don't know that. The questionnaire wasn't designed to do that. It would be very interesting to find that out. But we know from the NCD thing, I have to say a third of people said, I don't know, I don't think it has. And a third of people said, no, it definitely hasn't made me put on weight. So, let's be open about that. But a third had. Look at the NCD thing. Look at the obesity and the risk factors. A third, that's not great. And I don't know anybody who's overweight who doesn't want to lose weight. Nobody wants to put on weight. So, we're making it hard for ourselves, really. So that sounds, doesn't it, as if round one to the office cake is a health risk camp. But now here, 4 graphs related to 4 questions where I asked, the first one is office cake is a good thing. So this, the left-hand tall column is people who are saying, I agree or strongly agree with this. Okay, so the first one is office cake is a good thing, office wear is a good way to show appreciation, office cake is a great way to bring people together, office cake cheers people up. People like the cake, don't they? I don't know if it's, and what I don't know, because I didn't ask, but I am asking in surveys that I've got going now, is whether or not it's the cake they like, or whether it's the getting together or the social bit. I don't know. But I wasn't expecting evidence quite as strident as that. So I looked into it, because I was thinking, some people hate cake, some people love cake. Maybe it would be a little bit more evenly split, but that's really, unequivocal, isn't it? Turns out that there is a concept of commensality, which is eating together. And we all know with our friends and families that when there's a celebration or we all want to get together, we eat. There is something deep. It goes back to McVitie's. There's something deep about eating and sharing food. And there is a whole concept of commensality around this. And it turns out that there has been research done in America, several studies, but putting them all together, eating together, with your work group, with your colleagues, improves trust, cooperation and performance. So we shouldn't ignore this. It would be very convenient if if all those graphs were saying, no, we hate cake, but they don't. There's something very positive about getting people together, and I think that's important. So, but it doesn't help us on our dilemma. We're still nowhere further forward. So, the next question that I asked in the survey is where it all becomes a little bit more straightforward. And this is where we asked people what the ideal frequency was for office cake. Now, unlike you guys who have only had 4 options, it was a multiple choice question, and I'm going to ask you to say what you think was the most popular answer. But the answers were never, once a month, once a fortnight, once a week, twice a week, or daily. So what do you think most people said?
Once a fortnight.
Twice a week?
What about wanting cake or about...
How often we think we should have it? What's the ideal... The question was, what is the ideal frequency for office cake? Once a week. The most people said once a month. In fact, if you added all the columns together, 95% said once a week or less. Now, I think that's really, really interesting and very, very useful. If you've got a dilemma, a dispute going on, as anybody in the conciliation service, ACAS will tell you, if you start off by finding a point of consensus, something you agree on. Now, 95% of people, it doesn't matter, they had all sorts of views about office cake, but they all agreed that actually they wanted it less than we're currently having it. And that is really exciting. So in a minute, I'm going to ask you what you think you would do with that, how you take that forward. But one final question is, if most people don't think we should have cake as often as we're currently having it, why are we having so much cake? Why is there so much cake around? Any ideas?
Habit.
Possibly? Yes?
Where I work, it's because someone gets a bit bored at home and then makes one.
It's a lovely thing to share, isn't it? It is. That's the problem. Cake comes from a place of generosity, joy, friendship, but we are killing ourselves with friendship, almost literally. I think it goes back to this social influencing thing. So you're one of the 95%, and actually it sounds like most of you in this room are. So it's cake time again, and you're looking around at your colleagues all looking happy about eating cake. Are you going to say, sorry, I don't think we should do this? Where we like to conform, we're herd animals. It takes a brave person to stick their head above the parapet. So it rather looks, I don't know, but I rather think that it looks like office cake is continuing because we don't necessarily want it as much, but nobody feels able to say anything. And so on it goes, because we're nice and polite and we don't want to hurt anyone. So, what do you think we should do with this information? What are things that we could do about it?
You've got to find something to replace the cake, haven't you, that gives you the same morale-boosting hit that the cake gives. So whatever that might be.
Okay, that's great. How do you
Going down
find
the pub
that?
could be one, but that wouldn't be such a good idea, right?
So what do you say?
Going down the
pub?
could be one way, but that wouldn't be a good idea. It's
How would you find? You said, okay, we've got to find something that. Now, how do you do that? Ask people. Perhaps it's about having a conversation. I've got a slide. I'm not sure about this slide. This is my having a conversation slide. We need to have a conversation, don't we? Because once you're all, if you're discussing and thinking, okay, well, I think the same as you. Well, what do you think? Well, you think the same as well. Great. Well, what are we going to do about it? Let's do something about it. Because once, you know, if so many people think once a week or less is enough, and in different teams it might be once a month, it might be once a fortnight, I don't know. I don't think you can be too prescriptive about it, but it's much easier, isn't it, if you know that you all think the same way, to do something about it. So if there's a will and you think that this is something worth doing, you can have a conversation. I don't think you need a management mandate saying we're going to ban cake, or we're taking away the vending machines. Don't need any of that. Lovely if management can support and encourage, but actually you guys can get together and say, okay, how often do we want cake? How should we do it? What do we do if there are 3 birthdays in 1 week? What do we do about people bringing back cakes and sort of sweets and Toblerones from holidays? What should we do about that? You know, there's lots of answers, but you guys can come up with it. So it's about starting a conversation. A conversation might be quite hard to start, do you think? You know, I mean, at least today you guys have seen this talk, so you don't have to say, this is what I think. You can say, I've been to this talk and what we discussed was 95% blah, 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 and see what happens. I've just done a TED talk, well, a couple of months ago, but the TED talk has just come out on YouTube. It's only 11 minutes long. You could share that. That might get the conversation going. There's lots of ways we can get the conversation going if there's a will. So I don't know if this is going to work. This is very, very early days. I'm a new startup, and this is new research. But so far, it's looking promising. This chap, he's a contact on Twitter, or rather, I didn't know him before, but he saw my TED talk, and he works in Australia, and he said, it's my birthday next week, so it's last Thursday, and he said, I'm going to take in a fruit salad. Now, actually, that fruit salad is full of sugar, because bananas, grapes, and watermelon are very sugary. The thing is, fruit is going to be healthier than cake, but it was an occasion. It was something a bit different, he said. I mean, you can read what he said. It was something a bit different, because I can't help thinking what I'm picking up from people is that birthday, meh, more cake, lovely, thank you. It's not an occasion anymore. It's not special anymore. So that worked, and I'm going to keep up with him to see if it spread after that. This is today. This is my friend Julie in South Wales, and she's been on to me saying, what am I going to do? It's my birthday next week. So she's got some cheese and biscuits and some fruit, and she said, I did buy some cakes. I didn't want a complete uproar, but they're bite-size. So here on the left-hand side, she's got some little bite-sized cakes, because she didn't want to take a choice away from people. But there is an easier choice there because there's lots of healthy things instead. So let's see how that goes. And then this woman, Melanie, I don't know her from Adam. She's a friend of a friend on Facebook, and there was a Facebook thread about the TED Talk, and she is a team leader. She went into her team in the next few days. She always used to make a cake for every weekly team meeting. And she said to her team, she was brave. You know, she said she doesn't mind speaking openly. This is the sort of relationship they have. Do you want me to make a cake or not? Kind of was how she put it. And they said, apparently they looked a bit shiftily at each other and said, actually, seeing as you're asking, we'd rather you didn't. They're lovely, but... So we've got this bonkers situation where she thinks she's doing a nice thing, and they're thinking, oh, she's done that nice thing, but we better, you know, she's being kind and she's our boss, so we better be polite. And on it goes and on it goes. But a conversation was what stopped that. So let's hope there are going to be many more. So, just to sum up, we've got to tackle the I've put NCDs. We've got to tackle that in obesity. It's really important. I mean, did any of that shock you about, you know, the NCDs and obesity, or is it what you all know? See, we know it. Is it going to change our behaviour? That's the tricky thing. Ill health is about society, and we all have a role to play in it. And our obesogenic environment does not make it easy. So where we can, we need to change the environment. We can't do anything about the high street. We can do something about our homes. And I'd like to hope that we can do something about our workplaces, because we spend up to 2/3 of our waking hours at work. So it would be, you know, if our workplace was healthier, much easier to stay healthy. So, and the key thing is, you probably already agree with each other about an awful lot. So even if you don't agree about whether it's good or bad to have cake, you do fundamentally agree about let's not have it as often. So it's over to you. Are you going to do something about it? And that's entirely, you know, you can talk and have lots of conversations. It's about doing something about it. So if you download, you can go onto my website and you can download a report there. It's got lots of ideas, lots more about the research, but it's got ideas, recommendations, things you can do to make your workplace environment less obesogenic and easier to be healthy in. Because let's face it, we've got nothing to lose but the weight, and we've all got some health to gain, haven't we? And not just for us, but maybe for our children, because they're already bearing the brunt of what everybody has done before us with the NCDs. So that's it, guys. I hope that really helps and is interesting, and I'd be delighted to answer any questions. Oh, and we ought to. Shall we do the questions or see what you all thought about the coffee cups? I'll do the coffee cups. Okay.
So whilst Lou's just counting those up, I think it's a great opportunity for us all to reflect on the fact that we're looking at a new working environment, and what choices do we want as part of that. We're also looking at performance differently and how some of those physical elements affect our performance, either help us or hinder us. So hopefully, excuse the pun, but that's given us lots of food for thought.
I think, I don't know, I'll do the maths, but 3 people said twice a week or more, and everybody else said once a week or less. So, it looks like you are the same as everybody else, fairly typical, which is good news, isn't it, really? So that means you've got some consensus, but there's more you can do to find out. You could do a survey, you could set up something on SurveyMonkey, or I can send you a survey so that you would then have some objective data. Nobody has to be brave. Questions?
It's not really a question, Lou, but it was just, I think you started by saying about the NHS and how much it's costing the NHS. But if you go into one of their canteens, or you look at their vending machines that are all around A&E, for example, they're all full of chocolate and crisps.
Not for much longer.
But it has been.
Oh,
So,
terrible.
So it's kind of, we can play our part, can't we? And it's about choice, but if you're sitting, especially in a waiting room for 4 hours staring at vending machines
Under
with
stress.
young children,
And you can't get anything healthy.
then you don't have a choice but to have to go and buy some stuff like that. So
It's absolutely,
that's the thing that really cheeses me off.
yeah.
Because I think, we absolutely will start to think about how we can do things differently here, especially with our modernisation programme and health and well-being, which is at the front of all of our minds. But I think there's other areas that we need to influence.
You're absolutely right. So on the NHS front, there's an awful lot going on there. There was a voluntary commitment for hospitals to reduce and remove all the sugary drinks from all their vending machines and their cafes and their large sort of bags of sweets and chocolate buttons and things like that. So they've all gone. Well, the chocolate buttons and things have all gone. Not enough hospitals voluntarily committed to reducing the sugar from branches of WH Smith's and Costa Coffee and all their concessions and their canteens. So now by July they have all got to reduce all of that. And arguably a lot of hospital trusts didn't bother to commit because they perhaps, I don't know, I'm just wondering if they wanted it to be compulsory. So the best way for that to happen was to sort of force the issue. There is one hospital which I've got a slide of, but I've sort of hidden it. It's Tameside Hospital up in Manchester in January are the first hospital in the UK to go low sugar, low carb, sugar free. And there was a bit of an uproar, and it was on all the, I don't know if any of you heard it, you're probably busy working rather than listening to Jeremy Vine in the first week in January. But they did a pilot study last year with a lot of their staff, and now all their canteens and their for staff and patients and the public are sort of low carb, sugar free. Ironically, not for the patients yet, but that's where dietitians get involved, and that's going to take a little bit longer. It's a start, but you're right. There's also something called the Weight Initiative in Nurses that's just been done, looking at nurses being obese. The interesting thing, oh God, this is another whole talk, and I've got to shut up because I know you've got jobs to do, but a lot of us, nurses, well, they mirror the rest of the population. 25% of them are obese. They're the same as everybody else. But, you know, they're in a position where you would look up to them. And they're meant to offer health advice, but they don't feel able to do that. And for a long time, it's been a glaring issue. But the powers that be within the nursing profession have said, oh, yes, we know we've got a lot of overweight nurses. We daren't do anything about it. It's a bit too difficult to broach the subject of. However, when there was some research last year talking to nurses, and they all said, oh yes, we want something to be done about this. Yes, please, thank you for doing some research. Yes, please, give us some help. So, you know, there's at one level there's people going, oh, better not go there, but the people involved are saying yes, crying out for some help. And the same thing happened in a study that was looking at whether or not 30 seconds at the end of a doctor's GP appointment would help to help people lose weight. And it was a randomised controlled trial, so half the people, at the end the doctor would say, you're overweight, it would help your condition if you lost weight, here's some information. The other half were sort of, you're overweight, it would help your condition if you lost weight, would you like to go on a free Slimming World programme for 3 months? Now, you know, now none of the patients, only something like 0.7% of the patients, it was a big trial. Nobody said, well, very, very few said, how dare they? I wasn't there talking about my weight. How dare they talk? Most of them said, they're my doctor. They are there to look after me. Of course it's relevant. Yes, that's fine. The GPs, they were all trained with a script and they had to go through all sorts of training to do this. An awful lot of them were saying, and this is written up in the research paper, oh, not sure if we should do this. I don't know whether we've only got 6 minutes. Have we got time to talk about obesity? You know, they might not be happy about it. So we've got 2 examples there of medical professionals who aren't feeling able to tackle the taboo of obesity. And it's kind of, but it will happen. That's why it's all the more important that we do it, because you know we've got to attack it from everywhere. There's a cake culture in schools at the moment. It's absolutely terrible, particularly private schools. Sports clubs, after school sport clubs. Got to do something about it. Anyway, I got off my soapbox. Anything else? Anyone else? Time to go off and buy some food. Yeah. I hope that hasn't made you too hungry, and I hope it hasn't made you want to go straight to the vending machine. Okay, thanks everybody.